So I guess I would, to your question about three trends, the three that I would say are social networking, user-centric identity, and mass customization. And I think they're all interrelated. Social networking, as many have said, I think is going beyond just the Facebooks of the world. It's making its way into all of what you do on the web. And so to the extent you as a business owner or website operator have some social component to your website, you need to figure out how to leverage that. And part of that is making it easy for people to authenticate on your website. And when they do, then you can customize. You can give them a unique experience. You can serve custom ads to them, special value propositions, save preferences, et cetera. So anything a website operator can do to make it easier for your users to register and log into your website plays into the social networking and mass customization. And then the piece that's missing is this notion of user-centric identity, where the user does have control of their identity. They don't have little silos of information about themselves scattered around different web silos, but rather they can take their Plaxo profile or their Google address book or even their rating on eBay and move it to where the appropriate application is. And so I'd say those three trends play to why I believe things like OpenID will become increasingly relevant on the open internet.
Trent?
To jump on that, I agree to a large extent with one minor nit. I think the three trends are going to be, number one is policy interoperability. I think that a lot of these technologies are not going to be able to interoperate in the enterprise level without policy level interoperability, and I see that working, so I see that as a trend moving forward. The one I have a quick nit with is just, this could be a semantic argument, but as opposed to user-centric, we're really focused on user-managed. The reason for that is nuanced, but the concept being that the user isn't necessarily at the center point of all privacy or all identity interactions. They're oftentimes.
I'll concede you that.
I win. So number three. Yes,
Trend-centric.
We are trend-centric identity. Number three is the trust and reputation. And I see trust and reputation as the third point, specifically as it relates to like what Roger was saying earlier. When you have these bodies interoperating with each other, and even if some of that interoperation is below the user's understanding threshold, they just want them to work. You have to have trust that they are doing what they say they're doing. So trust needs to be baked into the system here, which is where reputation comes in off to the side here. Is reputation management is an incredibly powerful tool, and I see it trending upwards as people start to realize that you need to manage not just your identity, you need to also manage your relationships, which manifest in reputation.
Okay. Paul?
I think you're going to see a trend towards a recognition that it's all about relationships or it's all about context. It's this mutuality that Trent is talking about is inherent in every identity interaction, and it's not users on one side versus something else. It's mutuality. Every identity technology makes transactions possible by recognizing that mutuality. And the only thing I would add that hasn't been mentioned is I think, and they won't invite me back to RSA after I say this, that sorry, but the emphasis on secrecy in crypto is misplaced. It keeps a lot of people employed, but accountability is how we're going to get to the society that we want. What I like to say is imagine how much it would cost to have a stop sign, like a stoplight, that would reach out and stop the cars. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to use crypto and secrecy to stop information from getting out. And yet we all know what bits are like. The minute they're out, they're out. And I think that what you're going to see is another layer to the cake that's been underemphasized, which is moving towards information accountability, moving towards people, as they assert more control over their identity, actually auditing themselves. Being able to defend yourself in a court of law requires that you know what happened to your data. And to be able to defend yourself requires auditing. And I think that this whole idea that we're going to create privacy through secrecy, and, you know, this is why I won't be invited back, right? RSA, right?
Okay,
It's not going to scale. It never worked in the real world. I don't see why we think it would work in the digital world.
We got 2 more minutes. Dale.
In the interest of having 2 more minutes, I'll only give 2 instead of 3 trends that I think are going to happen. The first one is that just like the firewall has come down, one of my favorite words, deperimeterization, that the firewall has come down from the enterprise. I think the silo of enterprise identity will come down. You know, some of the setup to this particular segment had to do with how are these systems used in the enterprise, and I think that is one of the major trends, is that the concept of enterprise versus consumer identity has got to dissolve, and instead it will be replaced with sources of authoritative identity information, of which there are many inside the enterprise, many outside the enterprise, and they mix and match all over the place. It needs to be driven by the identity provider and not by some arbitrary notion such as enterprise versus consumer. So that's the first trend. The second one is similar to something Paul said, context, that I think that to make this identity systems understandable for people, it needs to be very contextual, very implicit. Another way of looking at it is much less based on identification and more based on authorization. In other words, you can get it right now, most identity systems must identify the user first and then by authentication, and then decide what this user can do. Instead, I think in the future that will be moved out to an identity provider will issue a token that says this user is authorized to do that, and you don't even need to know who the user is. Which will reduce liability for relying parties to store that information, et cetera. So I think the next major trend is more context-based, less authentication and authorization, and identification-based, more authorization-based identity.
Eve?
Picking up on Dale's trend, I'm just going to go with 1, especially since so many people have contributed really good ideas, and sort of rolling up quite a few of them in my head, including policy, interoperability, and relationships and mutuality and accountability, and a focus on authorization. For me, the top of mind thing is, if you can enable users to manage and drive permission data sharing, even while they're offline, as long as you're letting them do that permissioning at a time when they're paying attention and have all their faculties, then when that information about them flows in authorized and permissioned fashion, while they're not perhaps online, they don't have the opportunity to be phished. And they have an opportunity to audit and monitor what happened, supposedly on their behalf. To me, this is the key trend. Call it offline access. I think OAuth is a key technology for pushing forward on that agenda going forward.
Great, thank you.